Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Downballot podcast. The show's live on Twitch. Check out twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. We're live basically 7 nights a week there. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you join the Now space. Also join our Discord at discord.me/Echoplex. Enjoy the show.
Don't forget to follow us on social media for beautiful food and inspiration.
All right, everybody, welcome to Downballot. We do the show live every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch. If you're listening to this as a podcast on Spotify or whatever, head on over to twitch.tv/Echoplex Media and follow us. I'm producer Dave, and you can find me damn near anywhere.
What's up, everybody? This is the Councilman. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at THE_Councilman. So look for me there for the spicy hits and the spicy replies and the spicy takes, but only when I'm really feeling spicy, which is sort of like right now. So check it out, is what I'm saying. And you can find the rest of our amazing crew on our website at echoplexmedia.com. Please tune into all the streams on Twitch. Producer Dave is out here streaming 7 days a week. Not quite 24/7, but he's working on it. And you got to support us at patreon.com/echoplex and give us some shill bucks, and obviously subscribe to the Twitch channel. It keeps this amazing programming alive and functioning and thriving for you, listener, and you, viewer. So, and keep it live in the chat. We love to see those chats.
Also, check out our wiki. It's at plexwiki.xyz. All kinds of great shit on there. Got a couple people contributing to it already. If you'd like to contribute, just get in touch with me. I probably will let you.
We will be building out the down ballot portion of the Plex Wiki very, very soon. So please feel free to send some suggestions our way for characters and incidences and threads that we need to make sure that we include there. We know the obvious ones, but some of your favorites. Feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you, by the way, listener, viewer. We know you're out there because I hear that you're listening and I hear that you're viewing. But jump into the chat. I want to see more of our local politicos out there getting engaged in the show because you all have better takes than we do sometimes because you're right in it. You're on the ground. So please tune in. Please contribute. And check out the wiki.
Yep, and just don't also remember local loves the same night as this show, 9 p.m. Pacific. So you could do a whole San Jose thing. Let's get right to it.
Exactly.
Leading off, it looks like there's going to be one less statue in San Jose. We'll let this news story roll, and then maybe if you know a little bit more about it than I do, which is usually the case with these things, you can add some commentary. I think that's what we do here.
Good. And a controversial statue of a former San Jose mayor and captain in the Mexican-American War is a step closer now to being removed. After months of gathering public input, the Arts Commission unanimously recommended that the Thomas Fallon statue be taken down from downtown San Jose. The people who wanted the statue removed called it a symbol of the subjugation of Mexican and Native Americans. The City Council will ultimately make a decision on the fate of that statue on November 9th.
I didn't even know anything about this guy or the statue.
Well, this is an issue that's been up and down in San Jose for better part of the past 30 years. So just a little bit of backstory. This is a statue that was commissioned during the administration of Tom McHenry, who was mayor back in the late 80s or late 90s. And it was meant to celebrate. Tom is a very big history buff, but also very, very white and very, very male. And so wanted to erect a statue to one of the first mayors of San Jose, Thomas Fallon, who, yes, also served as a captain in the Mexican-American War and apparently was responsible for various atrocities against Mexicans, Californians, the original, not original residents. The Ohlone obviously were the first. So the original colonists, the Californians, and also several acts as mayor of San Jose and in clearing San Jose of Mexicans. Apparently there was some shenanigans. I don't know all the details, and it's certainly there's conflicting evidence and conflicting stories. But at the end of the day, there's an entire population and community in San Jose that feels very offended by this statue, feels like it does trigger them and trigger memories and history that is not really worth memorializing or honoring with a statue in their opinion. And when it comes to these type of things, even if there is some sort of controversy or some sort of conflicting story, I tend to side with the folks who are victimized and feel that this statue is offensive, because I'm a white dude. I'm part of the colonialization movement, I suppose, in retrospect. And I really don't feel one way or the other about this statue. I drive by it all the time and I don't feel anything towards it whatsoever. So if there are folks who feel completely offended by it and like it's an insult to their heritage, then absolutely we should take it down. And that seems to be where the Arts Commission and the City Council is headed with it. But it's taken 30 years. It was in storage for 10 years because of controversy. It was erected and then moved. And now it sits in a fairly, a somewhat gateway spot to downtown San Jose. That's going to get a lot more eyes on it soon. So I think that's another reason why there's a big push to remove it. Also, recent public uprising and outcry over colonialization and Black Lives Matter and so many other movements that are trying to push back and become more anti-racist and make our city more anti-racist.
I had a thought.
That's where we're at.
I had a thought on this. What if when we put up statues that are specifically about people, what if we put a fucking shelf life on them anyway? And it could be renewed, but okay, we're going to put up this statue. We'll revisit this statue in 15 years and see if maybe, because it's not the worst thing in the world to have somebody else make another statue and put it there. I mean, it's just more art, right? I mean, it's just fucking like, You could tear down houses and build new houses. Why can't you tear down a statue? I mean, like things be changing all the time in cities anyway. So I don't see like why maybe the statues, they should have like a sunset date.
That's a very astute take. In fact, so they don't necessarily, public art in San Jose, this is a piece of public art that was commissioned by the city. It doesn't necessarily have a sunset date. What it does have is a process for decommissioning, which is what's happening now, right? There's been enough public outcry that it's sparked. There's actually a process that's written as to how this goes, how this happens. It basically has to go through the reverse process of how it was approved, right? So eventually the city council will have to decommission it, right, and put it into storage. But there's no sunset date. There's no, regular review, that kind of thing. They do an inventory regularly of the public art collection, but that's mostly for maintenance and for upkeep, right? And for that kind of thing, not necessarily for decommissioning. And frankly, this doesn't really happen all that often, although it's happening a lot more with like naming of structures, right? We're realizing maybe we shouldn't name things after people until we tell the full story, or maybe we should name things after people until they're like dead, until they haven't had a chance to screw up anymore, right? I'm looking at you, Louis C.K. Elementary School. But anyway, I think you're right. We should have more of a process to sort of look at these things on a more regular basis. But as of now, it looks like this statue is headed for the storage facility, or at least there was a movement to melt it down and sell it for scrap. There were some people that just wanted to melt it down. They felt that was the best solution. I think it's just going to be put into storage, frankly, and I'm sure some private collector might purchase it or put it in their backyard someday and save it from destruction. But again, I think it's the right thing to do, because I don't really see the people on the pro side of this guy, making a big deal out of it, right?
Maybe there should be museums of removed statues with a little thing about like, why was this piece of art or why was this statue removed, and then like some information about like why it was put up, why it was removed. That'd be like a pretty cool fucking museum, I think.
Yeah, History San Jose has a park even that's dedicated to that kind of thing, and sort of building out pieces of San Jose's history that you can actually walk through and experience. So I think that'd be an interesting concept. I do think it should be included in history books, right? The one of the big points about this sort of renaming, decommissioning statues, tearing down, the patriarchy and the white male supremacist patriarchy, is trying to get that history told, right? The full history told, right? So if we can get this into our history books, like what the full story of this guy was, right? So that there is no doubt, there are clear facts about what happened and what he did. That's really the problem, is that no one really knows, and we don't know enough about the history of these folks that we lionize, because we're not taught it all the time, right? We're not taught everything about Christopher Columbus in school, right? At least not in Western school. So there's a big push now with ethnic studies and other movements to make sure that we're telling the whole story to our children, to their children, so that these kind of statues don't even get commissioned in the first place next time, because we'll know the full story and we'll find someone else who is more befitting of a statue, like producer Dave.
Yeah, I mean, Germany tore down all their statues of Hitler, and now nobody has any idea who that guy is.
Right. You still need to tell the story, right? Like you can.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is like you don't need the statue. The statue is not a history lesson. The statue is like what a guy. That's what the statue is saying, know?
Right. And that's what some of the proponents are saying. Well, we need to tell the history, and we'll never know our history if we tear down all these Robert E. Lee statues, right? I'm pretty sure we'll know about Robert E. Lee, because it's they're books.
There's all kinds of things that we learn about. There's all kinds of things that we know the history about that we've never seen a statue of.
Right. Exactly. That's what books are for, right? Read a book. We can make more statues that are more abstract and more artistic anyway. They don't have to be about people necessarily. They don't have to be to celebrate people. Most of the statues actually in DC, if you go there, are Columbia and Victory and like these angels and muses, and they're not actual people, right? Justice. There's very few statues like that, like Jefferson and Lincoln and others. I mean, Washington's monument is a big old phallus.
Yep. I guess you learn a little something about him, I guess. All right, let's move on to winners and losers. This is where there are no winners, and when somebody does win, it's to the person you didn't want to have win. And we're going to continue on our coverage of the saga of the Millennium Tower in San Francisco. It seems to have shifted again. Pretty soon, it's just going to be like it's going to knock down the whole rest of the fucking neighborhood. Let's see what our friends over at NBC Bay Area have to say about it.
New data reviewed by our investigative unit today shows the Millennium Tower in San Francisco tilted another 1/4 of an inch last week. The new sinking means the tower is now tilting more than 22.5 inches toward the west, which is toward Fremont Street. But it's about what engineers had predicted, so the test last week is considered a success. The project to shore up the Millennium Tower's foundation and keep it from sinking further was halted back in August when engineers discovered it was doing more harm than good. Now, phase 2 of the test will likely take place next month.
Tear the building down.
Yes. Save yourselves time and money and pain and lawsuits and just tear it down, cut your losses, and go back to the drawing board, because you're going to pay, whoever is responsible is going to pay so much more in the long run if you don't just figure this out and just clean it up. Now, you're right. I love that, though. It's leaning even more to the west now, but we expected that, so we consider this a success. Well, what exactly was the solution that caused, you thought would be a good idea to have it lean even more?
Well, no, the test could have been successful by gathering the information they needed. It doesn't mean that the test being successful doesn't mean you're going to save the tower. It means that whoever was conducting the whatever kind of experiment or doing, gathering whatever kind of information they could about the tower was able to gather the information they needed. That's a successful test. A successful test doesn't necessarily mean fix the problem.
That's a very fine point. Just because the rover finds, some sort of trace of life on Mars doesn't mean that there is life on Mars. It just means that it found the trace.
Right, and that's a successful test. Or if it found if the rover finds no life on Mars, but the test went exactly as you expected it to, that's also a successful test, right?
Correct. Well, so at this point, this tower could have its own bloody section on this show, frankly, just the amount of effort that's going into it. It would save, infinite dollars for local news having to cover it, all the people that have bought their condos, get their money back, and save the developer so much money, all this work. I can't imagine this is very cheap to run all these tests and drive pilers even deeper into the bedrock to try to stabilize the building. Like someone fucked up at some point, and it was very early on, unfortunately. So, got to cut your losses at this point. But we'll keep following it. As long as they keep fucking with it, we'll keep following it, because that's what winners and losers is all about.
So this will be great. VTA workers are trying to get some of that hazard pay, and it seems like the city's maybe trying, or the county or somebody is trying to prevent that. I don't know enough about this, but we'll let this clip run here, and we'll get some information from our friends over at from some real broadcasters.
They want extra pay for working through the pandemic, and they won't go unheard. VTA workers and supporters rallied at San Jose City Hall this afternoon. Rally organizers say VTA workers risked their lives by operating trains and buses over the last 18 months, and some have even brought COVID into their homes. They say the workers deserve retroactive hazard pay, but their demands are falling on deaf ears.
Because it's about time they paid. We deserve it. We risked our lives. We've suffered. Our families, we brought the COVID home to our families. Why not now?
Organizers say they have sent 4 letters to VTA since April of 2020, trying to negotiate hazard pay. Haven't heard back. VTA says it is actively engaging with employee unions to reach an agreement regarding additional pay.
Well, I can tell you what's wrong right off the bat here. They're protesting at the wrong place. VTA meets at the county building, and granted, there are city council members that sit on the VTA board because it's a cross-jurisdictional agency, but the majority of their business happens, and the transportation business happens at the county building, which is down the street a bit, but definitely not City Hall in San Jose. They have no control over your contract.
I mean, in San Jose,
maybe they got
in San Jose historically haven't protests generally happened at the exact spot they're protesting at, kind of regardless what the protest is.
It seems to be the gathering spot. I mean, that's the intent, right? It's a big plaza in the center of downtown. So yes, it's meant to be that kind of gathering spot. It just seems to me that the specific thing that they're protesting in this case, that vis-a-vis their contract. And there's a big plaza at the county building where they could easily have events, and there are events held and press conferences held and rallies just like that, picket lines just like that. If they formed a picket line, it would be outside of VTA's offices, which are across the street from the county building, basically next to the sheriff's office. So they're really in the wrong place to begin with, but maybe it's better visibility and they could get more cameras there, who knows, and more attention. That being said, it's a he said, she said. So recently the county passed, and you've probably seen some hubbub about this in the news. We'll get some video on it soon because it's made the sort of mayor's race headlines. But the county approved hero pay or back bonuses for all of their employees, except for the supervisors and the county executive. They're going to get $2,500. Woohoo! For the 18 months that they've spent working on the front lines of the pandemic. That includes the good wife. Yeah. Not that we're putting it in savings; it's going right back into the economy. But as in credit card payments. But that being said, this was a big to-do lately with county employees getting this. So obviously VTA workers who are not technically county employees, they're managed by VTA, which is, like I said, a different agency. They're going to have to figure out where to get the money, because I don't know that VTA and transit agencies are getting a whole large pot of the American Rescue Plan funds, which is what the county is using to fund their bonuses. So, and the city really is doing that too as well. So we shall see, but we'll keep an eye on it. But I do think they should move their protest down the street a little bit. That's just me. I'm a branding guy. Especially because
they could have done two. They could have done one at City Hall and then one another day at the county. But I just think it's for visibility, because that plaza is where, if I was going to protest anything going on in Santa Clara County, that would be on my short list of places to go. Be San Jose City Hall, just because that's where
mid-March.
Correct. All right. So we got one more story here in Winners and Losers. This, you said, don't hate the cops unless you're almost a cop, and I think we're just going to let this go.
This will explain itself.
See what it is.
Denis Shevchenko is free on bail tonight. He's been an SJPD Community Service Officer in San Jose, or CSO, since 2012. They're non-sworn officers responsible for collecting evidence in burglaries and doing traffic control at accidents or crime scenes. But police now believe Shevchenko lived a second life filled with hate, including hate for police.
The San Jose Police Department received information from the FBI regarding disturbing and hateful social media posts that were allegedly made by a non-sworn employee of the department.
The police chief says the posts were made on Gab.com, which touts itself as a free speech alternative to liberal social media, and included many troubling entries.
These posts encouraged and solicited violent acts against people who do not share the extreme views of the author of the posts, and included advocating the shooting of police officers.
Police arrested Shevchenko that same day while he was on duty under a gun violence restraining order. A search of his home uncovered several guns, including an assault rifle. And while searching his locker at the police substation, detectives say they found another loaded gun. CSOs are not allowed to carry guns.
These allegations are extremely serious and are being fully investigated to determine the extent of any criminal conduct by our employee.
Shevchenko is on paid leave during the investigation. The department says officers are currently taking a behavioral threat assessment curriculum in hopes of identifying people, even in their own ranks, with extreme views that could pose a threat. Damian Trujillo, NBC Bay Area News.
So at first I was wondering how they, you can't just go search someone's house because of what they say on Gab, right? But if the home search was subsequent to the locker search where they found the fucking loaded weapon, then that makes a little more sense.
Right. I think the timeline might need to be adjusted here in terms of the storytelling. But that's a little bit disturbing to know that this dude had a loaded weapon in his locker. Now, granted, CSOs are not, as they said, permitted to carry. So at least he wasn't carrying it. He was following that while on duty. But yeah, that's a little disturbing.
Also, chat was saying, and they led with the anti-cop rhetoric instead of the gun charges. It's not illegal to be anti-cop, even if you work for the police department. They might be able to fire you. There might be some kind of clause in your contract, right? You've broken no law. I'm also real curious why they didn't, they said, oh, Gab is just an alternative, I suppose, to liberal Twitter, but they weren't saying what kinds of things he was posting on the alternative to the liberal Twitter or whatever. And I think that they should have said that these, I'm going to guess if it was on Gab that it was far right, maybe Boogaloo Boy kind of stuff, calls to action against the city employees, possibly because San Jose is a liberal place. I'm just guessing what are the likely things that were found that might have been, cause for concern. But the news certainly didn't say shit about what he was saying, or even the nature of the things he was saying,
Digging deeper into the story, there are at least the written pieces. There is more evidence that he was, propagating extreme right wing views, but also just very violent views, and even, like I said, anti-establishment so much to the point of advocating for shooting and hurting police officers. And I mean, I'm not entirely certain, but I'm guessing that violent threats like that are, if not prosecutable, at least, sufficient evidence for a warrant or for something like that. I'm not sure about the law around violent threats, but he is threatening bodily harm to officers. So, but especially once they found the guns, that might have tipped them off.
Yeah, once they found
this is probably someone you wanted to.
I'm sure that it went. Somebody tipped them off about the social media posts. They went and took a look at his locker, found a weapon in his locker, and then got a warrant for his house. That seems like the most likely like a series of events.
Yeah, no, I would say you're correct there. But leave it to our local news to lead with the thing that's most incendiary, the cop who's calling for violence against cops. So yeah, good news is we're not the only ones who hate the cops. Bad news is, I mean, we're not going to go shoot a cop necessarily.
No, certainly not. And I'm guessing, like, if he had this kind of anti-cop sentiment, that he was like, that there's going to be like it's not going to be like the 3%ers or like the Proud Boys, because those people think the cops are on their side. It's definitely going to be some more like advocacy for civil war kind of right-wing extremism.
Yeah, I've heard QAnon. I've heard a couple of different things about this story. So
people just call QAnon anything they don't like now, though.
I know, right? That seems to be where we're going. Like, just like Antifa on the other side, right? We're all Antifa to somebody. Well, we'll keep tabs on this. I'm sure that this will come up again when he gets arraigned and as more details come out about the story. Because this is one of those ones that's a little too spicy for even the local news to let drop after one story. So I'm sure there'll be more on that one. So we'll follow up on that very soon for you, listener, viewer. Please send us any tips. If you hear any more, let us know. If you happen to know the CSO, if you happen to know more about some of our stories, always let us know. We're always looking for anonymous tips that we will never, ever dox. We will always keep your identity safe as long as you provide us with good information. If you lie to us, we will dox the hell out of you.
That's right. We'll just forego the show and put your name up on the screen the entire time. Fed us bullshit.
Stephanie fed us bullshit. All right. Well, as we always do with Winners and Losers, we close with get your shit together, because someone's always got to get their shit together in this town. And this week, I'm almost forgetting who we're asking to get their shit together.
It's Rich Tran.
Oh, that's right. Our good friend, Milpitas Mayor Rich Tran, who's, I think, a regular winner of this prize, but this week, I think, a return after a brief hiatus. But this is following up on a story that we had, I think, either last week or the week before about this incident. Mayor Tran engaging in a maskless gathering and he's getting officially dinged by the county for it, but he's pushing back, and he says it did not happen the way they said it did.
Santa Clara County has a bone to pick with the mayor of Milpitas. He's now received a formal warning after the mayor was seen without a mask at a public event. As NBC Bay Area's Marianne Favreau reports, it's not the first time Rich Tran has been accused of ignoring public COVID health guidelines.
The warning letter references the G-Bar here in Milpitas. The mayor says the county got it wrong, and he's asked it to rescind the warning. Santa Clara County's Business Compliance Unit sent this letter to Milpitas Mayor Rich Tran on August 19th. It says the county has received a complaint that you potentially violated the county health officer's order requiring use of face coverings indoors by anyone hosting an indoor event. The warning lists this address, the G-Bar on Main Street in Milpitas. Mayor Rich Tran says he believes the complaint photo that likely prompted the warning was taken back in July when masks were not required indoors. The mayor declined to talk on camera, but shared this email he sent to the county asking it to rescind the warning. In it, he writes, "There was no indoor event that took place on the date of your letter. There was a karaoke event scheduled. However, due to the COVID risk, it was actually canceled." The county says it did not find Tran and adds warning letters like the one it sent to the mayor are generally a response to complaints submitted to the county's COVID-19 complaint portal. We asked Milpitas residents how they felt about the latest flap for a mayor who is no stranger to controversy.
There's nothing in the world would make him exempt. If he catches it, everybody else catches it. So no, he should not be exempt from nothing.
Glad he got a warning because, walking around, and if I'm not wearing a mask, I'd feel bad. I'd get a warning from someone, I hope. It's good to see, the people that are making decisions for us are kind of on the same level as us.
This is not the first time the mayor's been accused of skirting public health guidelines. In August, he attended an in-person council meeting after being alerted that he had potentially been exposed to COVID-19 at the G Bar in Milpitas. The owner of the bar posted on Facebook at least 15 people were sick with COVID. Today, Mayor Tran told us he is fully vaccinated and committed to following the county's guidelines. In Milpitas, Marianne Favreau, NBC Bay Area News.
So, moral of the story, don't go to the G Bar.
I thought the moral of the story here was that if we wanted to go bother this guy, we know where to find him.
Yeah, right. Just about every night, it looks like he's doing the karaoke, he's doing the parties, he's hanging out with the COVID cases. Yeah, Rich Tran, when he's gone, I just don't know what we're going to do with this show, because like half of our docket generally is is shenanigans. I definitely want to have him on for an interview at some point with that top hat. That would be fabulous. But yeah, I don't know what I think about this, other than I've always wanted that guy to get his shit together, and he really does, because he's gonna end up hurting somebody or getting someone sick, and it's not going to be pleasant when the poop finally hits the fan on this guy. It's amazing that he got elected in the first place. It's amazing that he's a mayor of an American city in the first place, or any city. Sorry, shouldn't even make that a disclaimer or a qualification. It's amazing that he's a mayor of any city in the first place, that he's able to get elected, because the guy's a joke. But welcome to the South Bay. Welcome to Silicon Valley. Welcome to Milpitas.
What kind of, like, he's wearing like a high school Letterman jacket in one of his pictures. Like, what kind of fucking loser? Like, where's their high school Letterman jacket well into adulthood?
His whole campaign was about that. It was about, I'm from Milpitas. I was, captain of the football team or whatever. I'm a football coach at Milpitas High, right? Like, that's his whole thing, is like Milpitas to the core. I was born and raised here. Jack and Diane, vote for me. So yeah, it's totally in line with his brand. So I can't complain about that necessarily, other than it's a silly brand. Because that's really what you end up. If you elect the captain of the football team, generally speaking, I'm not begrudging anyone from playing football, but generally speaking, if you elect the captain of the football team, this is what you get.
Well, if you elect somebody who ran on the fact that they were the captain of the football team.
There you go. Ding. There you go.
Because somebody could have been the captain of the football team and not be any of these things ever again. You know what I'm saying? They could be like the best mayor. They just happen, but if they're
just happened to have been,
if their campaign was like, I was popular in high school, I'm going to be popular in my 30s, vote for me. That person is a douchebag.
Vote for Rich for mayor with two number fours on like highlighter colored paper, right? Handwritten signs around town, right? Just like you're running for student body assembly or whatever, student body president.
Vote for me and no more homework.
Rich. Yeah, no more homework. Free nachos at the football games. All right. Well, Rich, please get your shit together, and when you do, give us a call. We'd love to interview you anytime. So if anyone knows Rich out there, anyone listening, I'm looking at you, Marley. Get us in there. Get us an interview with Mayor Rich. I don't know if he'd come to us directly, because we're just kind of weirdos, and if you Google us, you might not like what you see. But if you introduce us and give us a warm intro with some lovely lads who run a very upstanding podcast, we might get in there.
All you have to do is watch. You'd be like, nope.
That's 5 seconds, right? I don't know. I don't take that Rich Tran is the kind of guy that does his own research, though. I think he might just like get an interview request and be like, yeah, totally, I'll do that shit. Just because he loves to hear himself talk and get interviewed. So, but yeah, the G Bar, watch out. Everyone in Milpitas, find another place to like do karaoke and drink beers.
Right on. So we're going to move to Downballot / recall watch, although I don't think we have any recall stuff. They may be trying to recall the gentleman in our second story. This story, I read the email you sent, and I've kind of did a little bit of digging around, and this story is, well, it's everything, actually. This is out of Los Gatos. Her name's Cindy Sheehan. I did a little looking into her, and she's been sort of spearheading a movement that's not too dissimilar to some of the other kind of public comment stuff that we've been covering. Public comment is, by the way, the reason we no longer have a YouTube channel. So we'll let this from KPIX5 will let this story roll, and I bet the fucking local news is going to do a horrible job of covering this.
We'll see. We shall see. I've only watched half of it.
Tonight, Los Gatos City Council members have been forced to return to virtual meetings, but it's not because of the COVID. KPIX5's Maria Sid Medina joins us live with the chaos in the council chambers. Maria?
And Ken, the council members have only had a few meetings in person, but there have been outbursts and boos and a defiance and mask wearing. And now the mayor is issuing a warning.
Madam Sayak, you are not God.
This is how the last in-person Los Gatos council meeting ended. Personal attacks against the mayor's son that forced her to call a recess and that we're choosing not to air on TV.
That's not mean.
Mr. Schultz, this isn't appropriate.
Authority.
But the outbursts, mainly toward Mayor Mariko Sayak, were far from the only one by a small group of residents over the last couple of months.
Sayak, you are not a mayor. You're a terrorist.
I do consider LGBTQ a terrorist organization.
What the fuck?
You hear that, Dave? You're a terrorist.
Okay.
Stop doing that alternative sex. You terrorist. That LGBTQ plus. An organization, not just terrorists. It's a LGBTQ plus is a terrorist organization.
I think it's unanimous, Mayor.
No, it's not.
Officer Paul, this is my meeting. I gave you 3 minutes.
That's a comment, by the way.
To allow other people.
Speaking in public comment.
Ms. Sheehan, please keep it above your nose.
We know your ultimate goal is to silence the opposition in public.
Ms. Sheehan, please keep your mask on.
Resident Cindy Sheehan accused Mayor Sayak of leading a smear campaign against her and her teen. But it all came to a head when she and another woman made offensive remarks about Sayak's son.
Mr. Schultz, can you remind the public that we are the elected officials and there's no need to harass minors in our community?
After more than a year of virtual meetings during the pandemic, council members returned to the council chambers in August. But after just 4 chaotic meetings, went back to Zoom. Last week, the mayor gave out this warning for anyone who comments about non-public officials again.
Please be advised that if you fail to heed this advice, you will be muted and potentially cited.
Maria, do you know why this group is so upset with the mayor? That's number one. And is anyone saying anything to you tonight about who they represent? Well, what is their beef?
Yeah, we tried to reach out to these residents, including Ms. Sheehan, and I was able to get a hold of her. She said she had no comment and then hung up on me. The residents have said during the meeting that they believe that the mayor has ties to hate groups and that she is non-inclusive. And by the way, we did try to reach out to the mayor as well, and she did not respond to us.
And we heard the one woman say that she felt that LGBTQ is a terrorist group. Is that correct?
Yeah, and she did say that she doesn't mean that those who are part of the community are terrorist groups, but that the organization is a terrorist group, and she said that because she believes that the mayor, who is an executive director for a counseling organization for kids, told her child that she could turn into a boy. So kind of a complicated issue there, but it sounds like there are several issues that these people have with the mayor.
And what?
There's a lot of issues that they have.
Politics and running the city, I don't think we'll find out. Maria, thank you for that.
Only in Los Gatos.
Well,
it's such a beautiful place.
This is fucking crazy. That's all. This is fucking crazy. Like, this is the shit we're seeing up in Shasta County. The thing is, like, this ain't gonna play in Los Gatos for very long. I don't think that there's a lot of fucking rich people there who don't want none of this smoke, right? There's a lot of rich people there. I don't know. There's maybe a little more conservative there than the rest of the area, but it's still going to be, fairly heavily Democrat voting area. And there's just a lot of these rich people up there. I'm telling you, they don't want none of this shit.
Yep. And a lot of VIPs and elected officials who are actually coming out and standing up and doing something and trying to silence this shit. But the sad thing is that it didn't happen in real time. So like when all this shit was going down, these people. So what actually riled these people up about the LGBTQ plus organization, terrorist organization, is that the city was voting on an inclusion, like a inclusiveness policy, right, and resolution on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they were voting to sanction a rainbow crosswalk, right, in Los Gatos somewhere, for painting a rainbow crosswalk. That's what riled all these people up in the first place. So they've been protesting at city council or town council. They've now taken protests to the council members in the mayor's house. So they're protesting within sanctioned limits of her house, and actually, taking everything there to her home. And in this last round, what they they weren't willing to put on TV was that they were actually outing her son, who is LGBT, who is queer, but was not outed to his friends at school, to his classmates at all. But it was only outed to his mom and in certain circles. And apparently, they found some social media posts or something that they insinuated, had labeled him as queer. So they went ahead and outed him during public comment to the entire world. So now apparently her son is afraid to go back to school because of bullying and all sorts of other crap. The mayor's husband, who was at the meeting when all this happened, ended up in a shouting match and a shoving match in the lobby. And of course, Cindy Sheehan and her folks are accusing him of being reckless and being, out of control and breaking the law. So yeah, it's a really sad state of affairs, but you're right. It's exactly what we've been seeing in other places in Shasta, and it just happens to be happening right here in our backyard.
Did they call him what I think they called him during the meeting? Because I'm guessing that this is the thing they wouldn't air.
Probably, but it was also, I think, just to further, he was called out by name, right, and specifics were mentioned. So I just don't think that they wanted to further, victimize him by repeating it, right, and playing the video of it. But I can definitely imagine the words that were used to describe him. And the mayor herself, to her credit, was trying to still run a meeting, right, run an efficient meeting and move things along, despite the fact that she was being traumatized like this. And none of her other fellow council members, Democrats, whatever, Republicans, progressives, people who are running for higher office, even none of her fellow council members stepped up in the moment and said, "Fuck you, shut up, get out of the room." Like you can't do this. Like with the rules of decorum say you cannot do this. Shut up, stop. Don't do this. None of them said that. They just sort of sat back and let her just get crushed. And she finally did shut down the meeting. But from what I've heard, they all said, well, we just don't need to respond because they're just crazy, and whatever they say, it's not. It is what it is. We don't need to respond or stop it in the real time. We'll just let them have their peace, and then they'll go away.
Just real quick, MX Vivian Wolf is in our chat. Another streamer. Shout out to Vivian. Super cool person, interested in the same kind of QAnon and conspiracy stuff we're into. What I'm thinking is that a lot of these people were part of this Save the Children shit like a year ago or year and 3 months ago. And now here they are, like, going into a city council meeting and like essentially harassing probably a high school age child, like on the record, and at a place that I could ride my fucking bike to. And that like really, really, really fucking sucks. And I don't know, like you can't prevent these people from going to the meetings. You can't prevent them from speaking their mind. But I also think that this is going to be a slightly different scenario than what's going on up in Shasta County, because I think these people will be shunned in their community for their behavior. I don't think that, like I said, Los Gatos is right next to the city I live in, pretty liberal place, and we don't play that shit. And, I'm keeping an eye on those faces because I'm sometimes called the mayor of Campbell Avenue. And if I see them out there, I'm not going to break any laws or anything, but I'll be like, hey, I've seen your behavior at the Los Gatos City Council, and I think you can go fuck yourself. Like leave them kids alone. This is one of those things that is driven by the remnants of QAnon. This, especially when they were talking about, there was some mention of, I guess the mayor is involved with some organization that helps queer youth. I don't know the exact nature of it, but I guess one of them was mad that somebody at that organization had told people that, if somebody is a girl, they could become a boy, or a boy, they could become a girl. And this is just all that shit. We've been seeing this. We've been seeing this at the QAnon rallies. They're telling people to get involved in their local government, but they're like, getting involved in your local government doesn't mean going and screaming at the fucking people at the city council, or like harassing their children, or fucking like that's not getting involved in local politics. I know, but that's what the QAnon people meant at these fucking rallies. Like Mike Flynn was saying that shit. Fucking Sebastian Gorka has been saying that shit on his show. All these people like fucking James Lindsay and Chris Rufo are running around freaking the fuck out about critical race theory, or also telling people to go harass the local government meetings. If you have a beef with someone, if you have a personal beef with someone who's an elected official, you can still handle it in outside of the realm of the city council meeting. You can contact them as an individual. You can, if you think they've broken a law, you can contact law enforcement. If you think that there's a civil action, you can file a civil action against them. But it's not like there's a whole lot of shit for the Los Gatos City Council to be worried about right now. So it's not like they're disrupting mega important business. It's like, well, Waz wants to build a 50-foot statue and we're not sure about that. I mean, it's that kind of place. But if they're mad about a rainbow crosswalk, they can go fuck themselves. I'll go take pictures of myself kissing you on that rainbow crosswalk. I don't give a fuck. Fuck
Absolutely.
those people.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Me, you, and HK can just go there and make out. It'll be hot.
Oh, fucking A, man. I'd grab some crotch for this shit. Absolutely. No, but seriously, they can. This has escalated, right? So we actually covered Cindy Sheehan previously on Downballot. She was the one out on Los Gatos, University or Santa Cruz Avenue in Los Gatos, the main drag. She was the one out there, doing the pro-Trump stuff and screaming at people and getting screamed at herself. I remember, I think we had this story not too long ago, maybe during the election. So it's now escalated. Now she's, they lost. And so now she's coming in to take it to the next level. And they can absolutely, the mayor can absolutely set a policy and shut down any kind of speech like this, any kind of crap like this that's not pertinent to what's going on, and it's personally attacking, right, and liable even in some cases. They can shut it down. They can even ban these people from coming back to meetings and coming to live meetings and get restraining orders against them. The odd thing is that Cindy Sheehan got a restraining order against the mayor's husband, who she accuses of attacking her, which is just hilarious. So all he needs to do is just, come to city council meetings, and then she can't come anywhere near them, right? Vice versa.
I think there's stuff carved out. I think there's stuff carved out of like restraining orders for things like that.
Yeah. Well, regardless, they absolutely can shut her down, and they can ban people from these meetings just by city policy. So they're actually instituting those policies now. They should have had them before, but there are calls for potential slander and libel issues, and now they're actually, like I said, protesting out front of her house and yelling at her son from outside the house and things like that. So there may be some kind of criminal penalties coming down the pike. But yeah, this is disgusting that it happens right down the street. So once they get back to in-person meetings, Producer Dave, I will absolutely roll down there with you. But for now, you can join them on Zoom and you can show support for the mayor. And we're asking everyone.
I wouldn't
to do so.
If there's a Zoom meeting and it seems to be going normally, I think it would be actually really bad for him. It would look bad on me if I trudged this shit up just to tell them that, like, I support her and her family and stuff. I think it would be inappropriate, actually. But I do think that if you live locally and you don't like this, it would not be the worst idea in the world for you to join them Zoom meetings, because then people fucking come on, start talking their shit. If the impression is that there's no one there saying the opposite, then it looks like the people that are doing this are in the majority.
Yes.
And that's just not true. And I think that as this gets bigger and it starts to get more media coverage, especially if it starts to get national media coverage, I think the people that are doing this are going to be shunned in their community. I think the business owners will tell them to leave. I think that especially the bars and restaurants there will tell them to leave. I think that that's just what's going to end up happening here. They're not going to be able to go and hang out at the bar. They're not going to be able to go hang out at the artisan cupcake shop, because they're just going to be like, no, get out.
I sincerely hope so, because the worst thing they can do is ignore it or try to shove it under the rug and just embolden these people more, right? So they need to be shut down. They need to be shot down. They need to be reprimanded somehow. They need to be curtailed, because it's going to escalate. This is where
social pressure is very, very, very powerful.
Correct.
Because it's just, these people are not in the majority in Los Gatos. The people in Los Gatos probably overwhelmingly think that either A, they don't give a fuck about the rainbow crosswalk, or they like it.
Right. Exactly. So the more that they're shunned and marginalized, the better. And that's really what this show has always sought to do with these folks on any level, is to marginalize them and completely deflate their balloon. And that's what we need to do here. Deflate the balloon and give them no reason to feel emboldened or like they can continue to do this, because it'll only get worse if you don't stop them here at the town council in Los Gatos, right? Where are they going to end up next, right? So let's do something. Let's call this out for what it is at the time. And there's racism here. There's undertones of white supremacy and all sorts of other bullshit. But yeah, call it out when you see it, especially here. Come on, folks, step up.
This kind of like propaganda battle is something I'm pretty good at. And I might stick my nose into this one a little bit, because it's literally just up the road a piece from me here, and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see this shit coming to my town next.
It's very down-ballot-y. The story is the ultimate of why we're here, really, I think. So we'll keep it. We will definitely be keeping tabs on it, guaranteed. The good wife and I have been attending the Zoom town council meetings just to keep tabs on folks and keep an eye out. So stay tuned. They are dealing with some very controversial housing issues in Los Gatos, so there are things for them to discuss at some point. Anyway, all right. Well, moving on to the recall watch portion of Down Ballot Recall Watch. So there is actually a recall coming. It looks like signatures have been submitted, and it looks like Chesa Boudin, the San Francisco DA, is going to be facing a recall election in 2022 of some sort. But NBC Bay Area has a little expose story on the whys and the wherefores and how it all happened, and it's a two-parter. So we get a couple clips in a row here about the background behind this. But I think that the theme you're going to see is that Chesa was elected, as we covered, to institute change, right? Reform, progressive reform, criminal justice reform, and the powers that be, the criminal justice establishment, are obviously pushing back, and even from within the DA's office too. So that's what we'll find out more about in this story.
Joining us tonight, those two prosecutors who want Chesa Boudin out, Brooke Jenkins and Don Dubain. We also invited the district attorney to join us tonight to respond to the allegations and his potential recall election. The district attorney, Chesa Boudin, declined, but instead, joining us from the DA's office is assistant district attorney Damaris Evans. Damaris, Brooke, and Don, thanks for joining us this evening. Let me just start. I think we all
worst Twitch panel ever
here, all four of us. We want San Francisco to be better and to be safer. The city we all fell in love with. I know all three of you want that as well, but it's a matter of how we get there. Damaris, let me start with you. Is Chesa Boudin doing a good job? Just a flat, simple question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
You see a lot of pushback, not just this last few weeks, but the last several months that he's not within the community. How do you respond to that? How does he respond to that?
Chesa's doing an excellent job as the DA, and in fact, he has expanded a number of programs for victims and survivors of crime. So the allegations that he is not serious about prosecuting crimes and that he is making San Francisco less safe are just patently false.
I'll bring in Brooke and Don in just a moment, but Damaris, let me just start also by that number in that report that we had there. 51 attorneys or people in your office have left or been fired. That seems to be a very high turnover. How do you respond to those people that have left? What are your conversations are with them?
Well, I actually haven't had a direct conversation with either Brooke or Don, which is interesting because I'm actually the managing attorney for the Restorative Justice Unit and the Collaborative Courts. And if either of them thought that alternatives to incarceration weren't being utilized in our office, I would have expected them to have spoken to me about those concerns, but neither one of them has ever checked in with me regarding our office's priority of implementing alternatives to the criminal justice system that focus on rehabilitation as well as centering the voices of survivors and victims of crime.
Brooke, let's bring you in here.
One of those two people is feeding back her audio, and it's driving me insane. Not you. One of the people on the show.
Oh, God, that's why I turned my mic off, because I didn't want to feed back any audio. But yes, no, very much so. It's amazing how the professionals just struggle with this shit, and the quote unquote amateurs like you, producer Dave, just have. Well, like I said, we're gonna have to do a whole show about how good this show sounds.
In here, I don't want to get into the weeds of the inner politics, inner office politics here. Was there a
sure you do? That's exactly what you're doing.
Of why you decided to leave this office?
Yes, ultimately, the final straw for me came during a murder trial that I prosecuted a few months ago, where I obtained a guilty verdict in that case. And we moved on to the second phase of that trial, where the defense had the burden of proving that the defendant was insane. When the defense was unable to do that and the jury hung, I agreed with the public defender that we would allow the judge who had overseen the trial to make the ultimate decision based on all of the evidence that he had seen during the trial. That public defender then sent an email to me copying Chesa Boudin and attempting to circumvent that agreement and asking that our office simply agree that her client was insane in order for him to avoid prison for this brutal and heinous murder, and which would put him in a position to be potentially released back out into the public within a year. Without ever discussing any of the facts of my case or the evidence or my opinion, Chesa, through an intermediary, directed me to enter into that agreement that the defendant was insane. And I simply was not willing to do that, given the state of the evidence. And I ultimately withdrew from the case. And so at this point...
Go ahead, please.
At this point, if the opinions and viewpoints of his most experienced and senior prosecutors are not going to be taken into account when it comes to these types of cases, it signals a major problem.
Are you saying, just to be clear here, that Chesa Boudin is allowing violent offenders to walk free without any rehab, without any counseling, without any other repercussions?
At times, that is the case. And we have seen that. The Troy McAllister case, in which the two innocent women were run down in the crosswalk last December 31st, is an example of that.
Don, really quick, before we go to a commercial break here, I want to get you in. You've been a prosecutor for 30 years. You say this office is going in the wrong direction. Why?
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're not doing it the way I've done it for 30 years.
For the same reason that Brooke just stated, I don't believe that Chesa Boudin is taking his responsibility as the chief law enforcement officer of the city seriously. I don't think his priority is to protect public safety or the victims of crime in San Francisco. I think his priorities are mostly just to satisfy a political agenda of his and to try to create some sort of good public perception of his policies. But in fact, the actual management of the office is making San Francisco a lot more dangerous.
DeMorris, I'm going to get to you in just a moment. Back to all three of you. We're going to continue our conversation after this short break. Stay with us.
So that's part one of this expose, or panel interview. I mean, you're kind of getting the drift, right? I mean, Buzzcut and former prosecutor just basically pissed that Chesa doesn't want to do it their way, and the way it's always been done. And that seems to be the entire beef behind this thing.
So the gal,
I don't see him.
The gal kind of avoided the question because he said, the interviewer was asking clearly in relation to the case that she was talking about, like, oh, is Chesa Boudin letting people go? Is the office letting violent people go? My understanding is if you end up with an affirmative, like, insanity, if that's like your thing is like an affirmative defense of insanity, you don't just walk out of the fucking courtroom. You go to a mental hospital that is a jail.
Yes. No, you go to jail and you go to a place that has treatment facilities, right? And you're put into special population. But yeah, you're not walking home from that. Especially not within a year, especially if it's a violent crime. And anyone who commits a violent crime, like a lot of these, what you hear about a lot with these criminals who are re-released, right? Especially with regards to immigration and these folks who are undocumented getting re-released. It's because they're getting picked up for petty crimes in the first place, right? They're getting picked up for petty crimes. They're released on their own recognizance, or they post bail for the petty crime. And then they go and commit a violent crime later, but it's not as though that they committed a violent crime and then they were released, and so that they had some sort of record of being a violent criminal, right? And they were put back on the street. Yes, there is theory that would say crime escalates, right? And if it's not checked, blah 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 blah. But when it comes down to it, most of these folks aren't violent at the time that they are put through the system, and that's kind of the point. is to not make them, to further enhance that violent potential by putting them into jail or putting them into these carceral situations. That's the whole idea, right? And as far as fulfilling a political agenda, I'm sure that the assistant DA who's there to defend Chesa will say it at some point in this next clip. But when it comes to political agenda, yeah, he has a political agenda. It's the agenda that the people of San Francisco elected him to fulfill, right? He was elected DA. So the people of San Francisco liked what he was selling. He wasn't making any pretense about being a tough on crime, old school DA, right? He was talking about reform and centering victims and all of these things throughout his campaign. So if you voted for that and they voted for that, that's what they want. So the people want that. And if that's a political agenda, then that's what it is. But I don't see anything wrong with fulfilling the agenda that you set out to accomplish when you ask people to vote for you.
Well, let's get to part two.
Let's do this.
Welcome back to NBC Bay Area News tonight.
10 minutes.
We're talking about the problems in San Francisco.
We may not get the whole thing
How much
in.
blame should be placed on the
we can
DA,
fast forward.
Chesa Boudin? Today, organizers of the recall campaign announced they've gathered more than 83,000 signatures. Those signatures still have to be verified, but it should be enough to force a recall election next June. Let's continue our conversation now with two former prosecutors who recently resigned from Chesa Boudin's office, Brooke Jenkins and Don Dubain. We're also joined by Assistant District Attorney Damaris Evans. Nice to have all of you staying with us through the break here. Damaris, let's get to you now. Pretty serious comments from your former colleagues here saying that you often or occasionally will let criminals walk right through the door without any repercussions. I'll let you respond to that.
Yes, thanks so much, Raj. And first, I want to respond to Ms. Jenkins' representation about the case where the insanity defense was raised. And those statements were just false. 3 out of 4 doctors found this person to be insane, including 2 court-appointed doctors. And Ms. Jenkins isn't indicating and letting folks know that the victim's own family strongly supported a finding of insanity. So it was only after the jury hung 7-5 in favor of insanity and other factors that the DA intervened in this case. So on the one hand, there's claims that the DA is not favoring what victims want. But then on the other hand, when we have this case where the victim's family strongly desired an insanity plea, there's complaints that that's what ultimately happened. In this case, we listened to the victims and we did what they wanted, and there's still complaints, which just shows that this is just something to complain against the Chesa Boudin's administration's ultimate goals, which is reform of the criminal justice system. And that means relying on alternatives to incarceration. So these prosecutors, it's not about whether or not he's doing a good job. It's just their opposition to his platform of having alternatives to incarceration. It's absolutely untrue that Don, we don't have alternatives and that we're not using rehabilitation. Again, I was hired specifically to work in the restorative justice unit. And again, if there was a claim that we were not allowing folks to engage in rehabilitation or other alternatives, then that claim should have come directly to me. If the 2 prosecutors were concerned about public safety and whether or not folks were having access to rehabilitation services, then that would have come directly to me. Those allegations are just clearly false.
Don, can you understand the frustration from just people living in San Francisco, hearing both sides of this, that you all used to work together, yet we still can't find a common ground here? What is the case? Why isn't there better communication within that own department that you worked in for so long?
Well, I don't think that either Brooke or I are disagreeing with the value of restorative justice programs or progressive programs that aim to keep people, especially our youth, out of the criminal justice system and to rehabilitate those who are already involved in the criminal justice system. I don't think either Ms. Jenkins nor I have any qualms about that or any disagreement. In fact, we're very proud to work for an office, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, that has a history of progressive district attorneys, including Kamala Harris, our now vice president, as well as George Gascon. So that's really not the issue that Brooke and I are raising. What we're talking about are the offenders, the criminal offenders who have long histories of violent convictions. Troy McAllister, who was mentioned by Brooke just now, Troy McAllister had 8 prior felony convictions and was looking at a potential life sentence while in custody pending trial for during the 5 years that George Gascon was the district attorney. Within 2 months of Chesa taking over as district attorney, he cut a deal with Troy McAllister to release him from custody immediately for the time that he'd already served, notwithstanding his 8 prior felony convictions, 3 of which were violent and serious felonies, including 2 robberies and an attempted carjacking. Chesa cut a deal allowing Troy McAllister out of custody immediately. And within 9 months, Troy McAllister was arrested 4 times, once for residential burglary, 3 times for car thefts, until the afternoon of December 31st. And by the way, was never, in none of those arrests did Chesa ever file charges by our office against him. And then on the afternoon of December 31st, Troy McAllister drove downtown into the heart of our city in a stolen vehicle while intoxicated at 60 to 70 miles per hour and struck these 2 innocent women crossing the street, killing them both. These are the kind of criminal offenders that Brooke and I believe are not being adequately prosecuted to the full extent of the law by Mr. Boudin. And in fact, Troy McAllister never should have been let out of custody in the first place for that 5-year sentence, time served, to be ever able in a position to kill those 2 innocent women.
A lot of people remember that story if I can jump in, a lot of people remember that story very well.
It's a complete false flag. It's an argument that had someone been in prison, they wouldn't have been able to commit crime. That same argument doesn't apply to times people are released from custody and commit crimes all the time. But the only difference here is you have someone whose administration you don't like and you want to cast the blame on them.
DeMorris, let me jump in here.
All right, we get the idea here. That's I don't know, there's some value to having the panel on there, but I don't know enough about this. It sounds like they might have made a mistake letting this guy out, but I don't know. Like she said, people get out of, they serve their whole sentence and then they commit crimes. So like, what the fuck's the difference?
Yeah, you can pick nat shit out of pepper anytime you want. If you want to make a point about something, right, you can find some sort of, find the most extreme circumstance. There's going to be something out there, right? The same argument has come up with when that lady Bambi got shot in Almaden, right? And they said, oh, well, how we let this guy go? He was, undocumented. He should have been deported. And why didn't he get let go? We should have a law that says, we need to coordinate with ICE to deport these people, right? But it's always when one blonde woman or someone gets shot or hurt or killed, or it's an opening for people who don't like someone or don't like an administration, like she said right there. You don't like what he's doing, you don't like what he stands for. Maybe you supported Susie Loftus or his opponent, right? And you prefer that she would have won because she was an insider, district attorney's office insider, right? Running for DA. She was the establishment choice. She was Kamala Harris's choice, right? So maybe you just are upset that you lost and you're you're looking for ways to go after this guy. And this is one opportunity that could have been, used against anyone else, right? But you use it here to make a case and make a point. And yeah, it's just, it's obvious that they have a game plan, just like he has a game plan, right? And they're trying to execute their game plan. He's just trying to get things done as opposed to worrying about, their little beef with him. So hopefully this gets pushed back. Hopefully if it does go to the ballot, it gets rejected. It's just a shame that we have to go through all this when we could be having a more elevated conversation rather than their petty little beefs from Crew Cut and his fellow former prosecutor.
So I think the problem that Boudin might have here is we're not going to have a whole lot of data as to whether or not what he's doing is like working, because he hasn't been there for very long. Right away. And so, and with COVID happening and whatnot, with COVID happening, people being stuck at home, domestic violence went up. Primarily domestic violence went up because people who are, in a violent situation, like they got some respite from it by going to work. And, and so it's just going to be there. He hasn't been in office long enough, I think, for there to be like really good statistics having been gathered. like, and any of the statistics that have been gathered are going to be like this kind of hackneyed stuff about like domestic abuse, maybe child abuse has gone up, and so we're gonna hear about that stuff. But there's no like even medium term like crime statistics that we're going to be able to point to. So it's going to be easy for the people to like message against him, and his counter message is basically going to have to be, well, you voted for this reform. I need you to vote for it again.
Right. We need to stay the course, right? We're not going to see the results tomorrow or tonight, right? This is about reforming systems that have been entrenched for decades, for centuries, right? So to take that apart, it's going to take time, right? It's not going to happen overnight. So there is some trust that goes into it and some faith. But you do what you can, you make the changes you can, and you try to show progress towards those goals, right? So I think he'll have a good case to make when the time comes, especially if this recall effort moves forward. I think he has plenty of case, and it's fresh enough in people's minds why they voted for him too. So, and I don't think this issue is going away. I think that criminal justice reform and carceral reform is going to be a big issue pushing a lot of these races. You're going to have a contested race for DA here in Santa Clara County that's going to have a lot of those same issues at play with the quote unquote progressive establishment Democratic district attorney now getting challenged by a much more progressive, social justice oriented reformer, right, from the public defender's office. So, and getting a lot of support for it. So we could see a pretty significant and similar race here in San Jose very soon.
Do you recall Chess's margin of victory? Was it substantial?
It was not substantial. I believe it was ranked choice, but he ended up, I think he won on the first ballot and the remaining ballots, but it was close. It was not at all a runaway. But again, he was running against an establishment candidate, and who was supported by the former DA who had left, and Kamala Harris and everyone and their brother in labor. So he ran against the establishment and won. So I'm confident that he can run a good enough campaign to defeat the recall, but it was a tight race. It was.
So I think some of it might come down to like, what does what do other city leaders do here? Like, is London Breed going to have his back? Peskin, is Peskin going to have his back? Like, some of the people we've covered on here whose name I would never fucking know without this show. Are other regional leaders going to have his back, or other DAs from other localities? The DA for, Alameda County, Santa Clara County, what's above what is it? Like Napa or Marin County is like right above them. Like that's and that's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. Because as much as this is a local San Francisco issue, I think it has the potential to be like a regional issue.
Yeah, it could have legs, even national. Because these kind of issues are playing out everywhere. There was a DA's race in New York that had someone that came down along similar lines, right?
Was it the police chief? I forget who. Was it police chief race? Or was the mayor?
Like that.
No, it was the mayor. It was the fucking mayor of New York.
The former police officer ran for mayor, or a police captain ran for and won for mayor in New York. But there was also a DA's race there for one of the for Queens, I think DA, because they have a different DA for each borough. They're that big, and the challenger I think did not make it in the end. So the establishment won. But these races are playing out nationally, so we'll hear a lot more about this, I think, and I think our race in Santa Clara County is going to draw a lot of attention as well too. So watch out, Jeff Rosen.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out. If it was kind of close, I fear that a lot of times recall elections are low turnout elections.
Yes,
and the people that are mad are most likely to turn out.
It's true. So it's going to require, just like it did with Gavin, getting the rational people fired up, right? The people that voted for him again, fired up again to get out and vote and to turn this back. So,
and there may just be,
who knows?
And in the cities and stuff too, after what happened with the Gavin Newsom recall, there may just be some kind of larger momentum against recalls. I see it in my chat all the time. They're like, "Oh, California, you're having another recall. Great." And it's like, oh, actually. And maybe there's going to be people that are just mad at the fucking process that we're having to do another fucking recall of another, people in San Francisco are going to be like mad enough at that maybe that will like play into this too.
Yeah, there's a practical side of it with the money that's spent and the time and the resources that are spent when we have elections, right? So, I think that will certainly be another argument that is used against it for sure when time comes. That's my favorite. That's my go-to argument when it comes to recall. It's like, we have elections. Did this person commit a crime? No, you're wasting our money. Like, you're wasting our time. Even, Republicans, people that wouldn't necessarily sympathize with Chesa Boudin might be sympathetic to that argument. That you're wasting my tax dollars on this bullshit recall. So the 5 Republicans in San Francisco will vote against it.
Right. And if this goes down again, if all the 2 out of the 3 people they were trying to recall up in Shasta, they didn't get the signatures. Austin Bennett's never gotten enough signatures for anything when he's tried to recall Senator Pan. And if this goes national and it goes down again, I think there'll be a pretty strong like trend against recalls in California. And I think we may end up getting some recall reform down the road as a result.
Wouldn't that be nice? Well, we will keep a track on that, and down in Recall Watch, we will definitely keep our eyes peeled for any recall reform coming down the pike too.
Yep, and we got another thing. We got this is a cute story. Thanks for the follow, Winning Machine. That's a cool name. Hope you enjoyed the kitty. We're just gonna let this story roll. I think it's kind of a cool, a nice little story about the Bay Bridge. And usually when we hear about the Bay Bridge on the news, it's either that there was a traffic accident or someone tried to jump. So this is a much better story.
All right, you've certainly heard about singing in the rain. How about whistling in the rain? That's actually the bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge produces a whistling sound, started ever since the suicide barriers were put in place. During the storm, the bridge was really making that whistling strong. It was super strong winds whipping right through the iconic bridge, making that noise.
So it was the Golden Gate, not the Bay Bridge, but yeah.
Right.
That's kind of cool. Although it would be kind of scary. You might think it's your car, right? If you didn't know what it was, you might think, like, if you didn't know that it was just like a function of basically the design of the bridge and the wind going through it, creating sound, like basically whistling, you might think there's something wrong with your car. You might think there's some reason to be concerned.
Yes. The cylinders are not cylindering or something that used to happen when cars were not all electric, but yeah, no, this came up, previously, but it came back with a vengeance during the rains. It's ironically because of the suicide prevention gates or grates or what's causing the whistling. So yes, even bridges know how to whistle Dixie. Just put your lips together and blow. And that's all for Down Ballot.
Yep. You want to read us out?
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us as always every Tuesday night. The local shows start at 7:30 with a Down Ballot followed by Local Love. So stay tuned for producer Dave and all the local music fixins this evening. And of course, all of the shows, Intellectual Dollar Tree, Cults and the Satanic Panic, you name it. The Echoplex Media covers it. And of course, always stay tuned for the Sunday show. That's where the really juicy stuff happens.
Yeah. And just thanks everybody last night. We had a big crowd for a little bit here last night. If you're not checking out our live shows and you're listening to this podcast, you really should, or maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. I wonder how many people's partners are mad at them because they sit here and watch fucking Diana Ploss yell instead of hanging out with their family.
My partner's definitely waiting for me to come out and hang out with her tonight. So I know the feeling, but I'm so glad to spend some time with you every Tuesday night, producer Dave.
Right on, right on. We should do an in-person one pretty soon here.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All
this
right.
is Devil from California. It's by Rebels Camp. It's about the police, and put it on auto DJ after this, and I'm going to switch everything over for Local Love. So everybody hang out, listen to some cool tunes. I don't know, pour yourself a drink because that's what I'm going to do first.
Devil.